Whenever it comes to games like this, with this Rose Bowl being New Year's Day, Pasadena, sunset off the mountains, it's a beautiful sight. These teams have a month to prepare, both Michigan and Alabama. I would also say two of the best staffs in the country. You give them a month, I think they're going to be able to maybe have some answers for some things you want to attack them with. Also be able to maybe address some of those weaknesses they had during the regular season. That's a whole lot of tape now they're watching. I promise you. Saban is in that office with the Cowboy, watching that secondary. Same thing with Harbaugh, eating a lot of steak, drinking a lot of milk, watching his quarterbacks. Like they're going to be ready for this one. So when it comes to games like this, we need to consider the what ifs, the potentially, scenarios we didn't see coming when it came to games like this. And the first one I want to address here, the first what if that I have for this Rose Bowl, what if Jalen Milroe is forced to be one-dimensional? What if you take away the legs of Jalen Milroe? Because listen, we know what he brings to the table as an athlete. Dude is special when he gets the ball out in space. He's compared to Lamar Jackson a lot. I don't think that's an unfair comp. He is that freaky with the ball in his hands. But if you're going to take away his legs, as I'm sure Michigan will try to do, and quite frankly, that's a really good Michigan defense, giving up less than 10 points a game, what happens then? The obvious to me is those wide receivers need to step up. Isaiah Bond looking at you. Jermaine Burton looking at you. Need those guys to separate and separate quickly to give him an open target to throw to. That's first. Second, my question is, can Jalen Milroe be consistent enough in putting it on the money, go in the right place with the football, and keep from pressing? Because Jalen Milroe, let's call a spade, man. He is a big play waiting to happen. And when you're a player like Jalen Milroe who feels the pressure to make that big play, you'd have to believe in a spot like this, there's always the opportunity to press, put the ball in harm's way, that big turnover happens, and then things kind of can get off the rails. But if he can be consistent and just beat you through the air and be as consistent as he was throughout the month of November, only through one interception, they're going to have a real good chance now. Have a real good chance. Also, if you take away his legs, it goes back to the trenches, I think, for Michigan and Alabama. And I think a game like that, just so we're on the same page here, could favor Michigan. They want to play that gross game. They want to play that game where it's all muddled up and you got to beat them going up the middle. Like, they're just fine playing that kind of game. I'm not saying Alabama can't win that kind of game, but I do think that would play into the hands of what Michigan wants to do. Now, if Alabama wins a game like that, everybody hold on tight. Because if Alabama beats Michigan at their own game, low scoring in the 20s, kind of a gross game, Jalen Milroe doesn't have the electric factor that we've seen, and they still find a way to win, oh boy, be very, very dangerous. Be very, very nervous about this Alabama team for the rest of the country. Other question I have, what if I want to address here for this Rose Bowl. What if the game is put squarely on the shoulders of a one JJ McCarthy? Wouldn't that just feel so poetic? Because what if we said all offseason long, all season long, it's going to be on JJ McCarthy if they want to win a national title. Hey, JJ McCarthy has to make them two-dimensional if they want to be able to hoist that trophy and feel that confetti fall in Houston. Michigan, a 60% of the time running the football team. That's who they are. That's what they've been. But just like we said at the beginning of the year, just like the legend foretold, it would take a quarterback, it would take JJ McCarthy being the one to get them over the hump. So in a game like this, if Alabama looks how they did against Georgia and they hold them to less than 3 yards a carry, it will fall on JJ McCarthy to make that happen. And same thing we said about Jalen Milroe a second ago, and if they can play with him being one-dimensional and they still find a way to win, if JJ McCarthy and Michigan score 45 and find a way to win like a shootout kind of game, and these playmakers elevate for him, and he is ultimately the King Arthur that pulls Excalibur out of the stone. Little reference for you there. Be afraid of Michigan because they have hit that second gear at that point. At that point, they have reached maximum capacity. They've reached their final form, and that would be, I think, terrifying for the rest of college football. Because then you have a team that can pound the rock the way that they do with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, and that offensive line, as beat up as they are, I still think they're a force to be reckoned with. You have a quarterback who's not only proven he can beat you, he's in his zone. He's got some extra confidence heading to Houston. So that would be dangerous. That would be scary. And again, that would be very poetic to be the moment where it comes down to you got to win college football playoff game to get to the national title, to exercise those demons, and you do it in the way that everybody said you'd have to throughout the course of the season and even in the preseason. So that would be huge. Now, here's my last what if for the Rose Bowl. We'll move on to the Sugar Bowl here in a second. What if it's just sloppy overall? Like, what if Jalen Milroe kind of reverts to what we saw against Texas? What if we see JJ McCarthy look like he did against TCU last year? What if we see special teams errors and we see missed field goals and we see muffed punts and it's just like a gross, sloppy game where we see like 3 or 4 total turnovers? I think at that point, you look to, okay, who can play the most simple style of ball and hold on to this thing? And just find a way to just say, you know what? We're doing the same thing over and over again. We're going to be fine taking a profit, and we'll just play the game that way. It won't be pretty. We'll have a lot to clean up, but we're just going to do what we do best, double down on ourselves, and find a way to win the football game. To be clear, both teams want to run the football. Michigan and Alabama are both 60% run teams. I think in a spot like this, it would favor Michigan because, to be real now, Michigan has played the most simple style of ball throughout the course of this season. And not because they want to, because they're able to. I mean, I understand against Penn State, there was a little more resistance than we had seen throughout the course of the season by nature of how good they were defensively. But what happened in the second half? All running plays. They did exactly what I'm referring to right here. They're comfortable turning around, giving the ball to their backs, and just living that way. I think for Alabama, they could play a style of game that way, but I think ultimately they're not quite as comfortable playing a game at that style. So just to be clear, more turnovers in this game, I think, like we've said all leading up to this game, more turnovers to me favor Michigan. So we'll see what happens there, but those are my what-ifs for the Rose Bowl. And just to be honest, I think when it comes to games like that, when it comes to the college football playoff, we got to kind of expect the unexpected. TCU made the national title last year, so that should kind of serve as proof of concept when it comes to that whole thought. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.